Hello and welcome to Tech Deals. ASRock Z270 Extreme 4 motherboard. What is this? Why should you watch and why should you care? In short, if you are looking at building a high-end gaming computer using one of the new 7th generation Kaby Lake processors from Intel, either the i7-7700K, the i5-7600K, or the brand new i3-7350K, then you've come to the right place, because for $150, this is a lot of value for the money. This motherboard has most of the features you will find on $200 motherboards for $150. It's an excellent motherboard for its price. Now I'm quickly going to run down some of the features and talk about what I think makes this stand out from some of the other boards. I have reviewed some other motherboards. A link to all of the motherboard video reviews that I have done will be in the video description below, and a link to both Amazon and Newegg for this motherboard will be right down there. Compare prices. Sometimes one is cheaper than the other, so compare between Amazon and Newegg and see where it's the least expensive and buy it where it makes the most sense for you. Now, I mentioned the 3K processors. Any of the 6th or 7th generation processors from Intel will work on this motherboard, from the dual-core Pentiums all the way up to the 7700 and 7700K. However, if you are getting a Z-series board, the Z270 chipset, you really owe it to yourself to get one of the processors with a K at the end of it. These are overclockable. The multiplier is not locked. So this motherboard will support essentially any clock speed. Put enough cooling on your CPU, and you can easily run any of these CPUs at 5 gigahertz or more. Now, I mentioned that this motherboard has many of the features of more expensive boards. Couple of examples. It has the steel slots. These PCI Express slots are reinforced by metal so that you can install large, heavy graphics cards with less risk of damaging the slots. Cheap motherboards tend to have fairly weak PCI Express slots, and if you put a big, heavy graphics card into it, you run the risk of damaging the slot. This also comes with 8 serial ATA ports. None of the other Z270 boards I have reviewed do that. Not even the $200 boards I've reviewed do that. There are an extra 2 serial ATA ports, so if you want to connect a lot of hard drives or a lot of serial ATA drives, you can definitely do so. This also has something else that the higher end boards don't have. 3 M.2 slots. 2 of them are on the board for solid-state drives. The other one you cannot see in this shot, but I'll do a close-up, is right up here near the top, and it's for Wi-Fi expansion. Now, for $150, this board does not come with Wi-Fi included, but what it does do is it comes with the cutouts and the slot to add the Wi-Fi chip of your choice in the future if that's something that you want to add. And at this price point, you can certainly budget for that and add it if you care, or not spend the money and save it when you buy the board. This motherboard includes the latest Realtek ALC1220 audio chip. What is that? It is the newest and greatest audio chip from Realtek. It's the same one you'll find on the higher end $200 boards. It has excellent signal to noise ratio. It's basically the latest and greatest thing, 8-channel HD audio. This motherboard has both optical out as well as all the separate 3.5mm audio jacks to allow you to hook up a surround sound audio system. It also includes USB 3.0 and 3.1 super speed ports, both Type A and Type C. So 10 gigabits per second, and it includes a bunch of them. Not only are they located on the back of the board, but the headers are the most extensive of any of the Z270 boards, even more so than the $200 boards I've reviewed. At the bottom of this board are 3 USB 2.0 headers, and on the side of the board are 2 USB 3.0 headers. Why so many? Well, the 3.0 headers are especially useful if you have a nice new computer case that has 4 USB 3.0 ports on the front. You'll want those right up here on the front of the board. Now, as far as the USB 2.0 headers on the bottom, if you have a nice fancy liquid cooler, which you should if you're buying nice processors such as these, many of those liquid coolers will communicate with your computer through one of the USB 2 ports, such as the Corsair H100i or the H115i liquid coolers. They have something called Corsair Link, which will connect to the motherboard through one of the 2.0 headers on the motherboard. Now, power supplies, many of the Corsair power supplies that have an I in them also will communicate efficiency information, power draw information. So 2 of those 3 ports may be used, by your accessories such as your power supply or cooler, leaving you with an additional one for either front or back ports. None of the other motherboards I have reviewed so far actually have 3 of those. I consider that to be a pretty nice feature. This board also supports the Aurora RGB lighting standard. There is a header on the bottom of the board to connect a standard 4-pin RGB lighting strip. So if you, for example, have RGB lights you want to run around your case or around the side window of your PC, you can connect those in and control them using their software to create whatever lighting effects you want. Now there are LED lights on the board, one around the chipset itself, one up here above the sound chip, and then one right up here by the I/O port. So there's RGB lighting on the board, and then there's an RGB header to do more customizations in your system if you want, or you can simply turn them off if you'd like your system to be dark and black. This board also supports both SLI and Crossfire. In the 2 PCI Express slots, you can install 2 graphics cards. This board will properly split it from 1 X16 slot to 2 X8 slots. What this means is that it has proper support for both SLI and Crossfire. Not all motherboards do, and in fact, not all Z270 boards do. There do in fact exist Z270 boards which don't support SLI and don't properly split the slots into 2 8X slots, so be aware of that. Furthermore, this board comes with something very nice. This is a high bandwidth SLI adapter. Now it's not LED lit and it's not fancy and wrapped in plastic. But if you go onto Amazon or Newegg or directly to NVIDIA and you order one of these, you'll spend $30 to $40 to buy a high bandwidth bridge if you want to connect 2 NVIDIA graphics cards into SLI. This is included. Now the $200 boards generally all come with these, but the $150 boards don't. I recently reviewed an MSI SLI Plus board for $150. Did not include one of these in the box. The ASRock Extreme 4 does. That will save you money if you want to SLI 2 boards. It also comes with 4 serial ATA cables, which is really nice. There's 2 in each of these bags. It comes with a very nice black silk screened I/O shield for the back of your computer case with all of the ports labeled. And it comes with 3 M2 screws. There are posts on the board, and it comes with all 3 of the screws needed to mount 2 solid-state drives into the main 2 M2 slots, as well as a Wi-Fi adapter into the top one. And then, of course, it also includes a driver CD. Now, I don't actually recommend you use the driver CD unless you need it to get online, because you should really go to ASRock's website and download the latest drivers for your motherboard when you actually install Windows on this thing. Finally, we have a very nice user manual with a lot of information written in several different languages. There's a diagram of the board, layout of all the parts on the board that covers what all the connectors are and where everything needs to be plugged in. It's very, very nice. So this has been my look at the ASRock Z270 Extreme 4 motherboard. Now, in a minute, I'm going to do some close-up shots so you can see all the components, and I'll mention everything included. But before I do that, I simply want to say that for $150, this is more value than that price would indicate. This is not a bare bones strip board, but it's priced at the lower end of the Z270 market. Honestly, taking a look at this board in person, comparing it side by side to the other boards I've looked at, I'm genuinely impressed by the features, by the quality, and by the components included in this board at this price point. I would definitely put this motherboard on your short list if you are looking at building a high-end overclocked system using one of these 3 processors. Like this video if you like it, share it with your friends if you loved it. Remember to subscribe to my channel using the big huge red button directly below this video. Questions and comments in the comment section below, and as always, again, check out the video description. Links to all of my motherboard reviews will be down there. Links to Amazon and Newegg for this motherboard, as well as these 3 processors, because frankly they're the 3 processors you should consider putting in here, will all be in the video description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Starting at the top of the motherboard, we have our 8-pin CPU power connector located right next to the heatsink. These are very nice metal heatsinks which help keep all of your power components cool around the board. At the very top of the board, there are 2 CPU fan and water block power connectors. This will let you connect a variety of either air-cooled or water-cooled pumps to your system. You then have the main CPU socket itself, and then the 4 memory sockets next to it. To the very right of the board, we have our 24-pin ATX mainboard power connector, and beneath that we have the two USB 3.0 headers. Those will let you connect to USB 3 ports on the front of your case if you have either 2 or 4 of them. Beneath that, we have our 8 serial ATA ports. As I said before, this is the only Z270 board I have reviewed that actually has 8 serial ATA ports. That's a really nice feature if you want to add a lot of expansion. In the center of the board, we have our first of our M2 slots located above the graphics card. And then you can see our 2 X16 PCI Express slots for either 1 or 2 graphics cards. There are 3 1X PCI Express slots if you want to add additional expansion cards or other accessories, and then 1 X4 slot at the very bottom of the board for expansion cards that need more than a 1X slot that need either a 2 or a 4X slot. On the bottom right of the board, you can see our second M2 slot. Either one of these M2 slots will support either a serial ATA solid-state drive or an NVMe PCI Express solid-state drive, such as the Intel 600P or the Samsung 960 Pro or 960 EVO. Coming across the bottom of the board, we have our front panel connectors for the reset button, power button, reset switch, and LED lights. We have another chassis fan header. We actually have a COM port, a serial port, RS-232 if you need one. We have our 3 USB 2.0 headers. We have our 4-pin RGB lighting header. And then we have our front panel HD audio port. There are a total of 5 fan, chassis, and CPU headers. So if you've got 2 front case fans, a back exhaust fan, and 2 fans on your liquid cooler, you can plug them all in using those 5 headers, and I've highlighted the position on the board of those headers for you. Looking on the back I/O shield, we have our space to add our antenna for the Wi-Fi adapter that you can connect to the M2 slot. There is a dual-purpose PS2 port for either keyboard or mouse, 2 USB 3.0 super speed ports in blue. There are 3 video outs. You can use all 3 at once if you wish for the integrated graphics on the Intel CPUs. There is an HDMI port, a DVI-D port, and a VGA port for backwards compatibility if you have an older VGA monitor. Here are our 2 USB 3.1 ports. These are our 10 gigabit per second super speed ports. The top one is a Type A port, and the bottom is the new reversible mini Type C port. Then we have our Intel Gigabit Ethernet LAN and 2 more USB 3.0 5 gigabit per second ports. Finally, we have our HD 8-channel audio, including our optical out port for a variety of speaker and headphone connection uses. That has been my close-up look at this motherboard. I hope these close-up shots are helpful to you to get an idea of what to expect on the board and how you can fit it into your system. Again, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video.